Ryan Roberts slammed to beat the Dodgers. The Diamondbacks had already won the division in 2011, so it seemed their September 27 game against the Dodgers didn't matter. Well, for a team trying to rack up as many wins as possible, it did. Unfortunately, they were trailing 6-1 going into the bottom of the 10th inning. 2 outs came quickly, and the game looked like it was over. But it wasn't, because somehow things started to turn around when no one expected. The Diamondbacks came back hard, and that comeback was capped with Ryan Roberts smashing a grand slam off Javi Guerra for a 7-6 win. As you would expect, the stadium went crazy, because what better way to close out an amazing 94-win season than with a memorable walk-off? Hank Aaron's walk-off to win the pennant. Hank Aaron hit over 700 home runs throughout his illustrious career, but ask him about his favorite, and he'll definitely point to this one. On September 23, 1957, the Braves were 5 games ahead with 6 to go. Now, they were facing the Cardinals in Milwaukee, and the score was tied in the bottom of the 11th. But before you could say Jackie Robinson, Aaron stepped up and crushed a 2-run walk-off to win the game 4-2. Now, what made this homer great is that it clinched the pennant and set the tone for their championship run. Not a bad day at the office, if you ask me. John Lowenstein's walk-off against the Angels in Game 1 of the 1979 ALCS, the Orioles were tied 3-3 with the Angels in the 10th inning. With 2 outs and runners on first and third, Baltimore brought in John Lowenstein to pinch hit, and 1 pitch later, he sent the ball into the seats for an amazing walk-off 3-run homer. The O's won the game 6-3, and just like that, Lowenstein went from bench guy to instant hero. Carlton Fisk's walk-off in Game 6. Game 6 of the 1975 World Series is nothing but legendary. The Red Sox were down 6-3 in the 8th against the Reds, and they had their backs to the wall. However, Bernie Carbo tied it with a pinch-hit 3-run blast. Then, in the 12th inning, Carlton Fisk did the unthinkable by hitting one down the left field line and famously waved it fair as it clanged off the foul pole. It was simply insane as the Sox forced a Game 7, and Fisk's wave became one of the sport's most iconic moments. Gabby Hartnett's homer in the gloaming. So, it's September 28, 1938, and the Cubs trailed the Pirates in the standings by half a game with 6 left to play. The score was tied late, and darkness was about to end the game. But with 2 outs in the 9th, Gabby Hartnett crushed a homer into the dim evening sky for a memorable 2-1 win. That shot is still talked about nearly a century later. Scott Podsednik's World Series walk-off. Scott Podsednik didn't hit a single homer all regular season in 2005. But in Game 2 of the World Series against the Astros, tied 6-6 in the 9th, he stepped in against Brad Lidge. Then he did the unthinkable. He hit 1 out, and the Sox took a 2-0 series lead and would go on to sweep for their first title in 88 years. Johnny Bench's walk-off against Tom Seaver. Game 1 of the 1973 NLCS had Johnny Bench facing Tom Seaver in a pitcher's duel. Tied 1-1 in the 9th, Bench worked the count and then crushed Seaver's pitch into the seats for a sweet 2-1 win. Cincinnati set the tone for the series. And the clutch homer off a Hall of Famer is definitely something to brag about. Tony Peña's extra inning walk-off. It was October 3rd, 1995, and Cleveland was playing its first postseason game in 41 years. They faced Boston in the ALDS, and the game was tied 4-4 in the 13th inning. But not for long, because backup catcher Tony Peña came up with 2 outs. He swung big and sent the ball over the fence for a jaw-dropping 5-4 win. And just like that, Cleveland's long postseason drought had a fairy tale start. Todd Helton's walk-off to fuel the Rockies. With 13 games left in 2007, the Rockies were chasing both the division and the wild card. However, they were down 8-7 to the Dodgers in the 9th, and Matt Holliday singled with 2 outs. Then, Todd Helton stepped up like a superhero and smashed a 2-run walk-off homer off Takashi Saito. That win sparked a hot streak where Colorado won 12 of their last 13, grabbed the wild card, and made it all the way to the World Series. Maglio Ordonez's pennant-winning homer. In 2006, the Tigers had already stunned the Yankees in the ALDS. Now facing the A's in the ALCS, they led the series 3-0. But things were not so easy in Game 4, as it was tied in the ninth. But Maglio Ordonez stepped up and launched a 3-run homer off Houston Street. Comerica Park went wild as Detroit punched their ticket to the World Series in unforgettable style. Chris Burke's 18th inning walk-off. It's October 2005 and Game 4 of the NLDS against the Braves. Things went deep into the 18th inning. But Chris Burke, who came in as a pinch runner way earlier, finally ended it with a sweet solo walk-off shot. The Astros moved on to the NLCS, Steve Balboni's walk-off against the Brewers. On September 8, 1985, the Royals blew a big lead against the Brewers, and the game went to the 11th inning. With one out, Steve Balboni crushed a brain-bursting 2-run homer off Raleigh Fingers for a 13-11 win. Kansas City kept rolling from there and ended the year with their first ever World Series title. Bobby Grish's walk-off against the Yankees. In July 1979, the Angels were in a tight division race. Trailing the Yankees 4-3 in the ninth, with 2 outs, Bobby Grich faced Ron Guidry, one of the league's best. But Grich wasn't fazed, as he sent one deep for a 2-run walk-off. The win helped keep the Angels in first, and they went on to win their first division crown. Kirk Gibson's limping World Series walk-off. In Game 1 of the 1988 World Series, the Dodgers were down 4-3 to the A's in the ninth, with 2 outs and a runner on. Kirk Gibson, who was hurt and barely able to walk, came in to pinch hit, and on a 3-2 count, he smacked a backdoor slider from Dennis Eckersley into the stands. Heroically, he limped around the bases, pumping his fist as the Dodgers took an iconic win. Alex Gonzalez's walk-off against the Yankees. In the 2003 World Series, the Marlins were down 2-1 in games to the Yankees. Game 4 went into the 12th, inning tied 3-3. Then Alex Gonzalez stepped in and blasted a solo homer off Jeff Weaver. That play didn't just tie the series, it helped the Marlins go on to win the championship. Dale Sveum's walk-off to keep the streak. On April 19, 1987, the Brewers were 11-0 to start the season, but trailed the Rangers 4-1 in the ninth. However, Rob Deere tied it with a 3-run shot, and Dale Sveum followed with an impressive walk-off 2-run homer. That made it 12 straight wins, and the next day they made it 13, tying an MLB record in the process. Kirby Puckett's Game 6 walk-off. It's Game 6 of the 1991 World Series, and the Twins trailed the Braves 3-2 in the series. Kirby Puckett made a highlight reel catch in center. Then in the 11th inning, he hit a beautiful walk-off homer to force Game 7. Minnesota went on to win the series, and Puckett's performance is still replayed every October. Lenny Dykstra's walk-off against the Astros. In 1986 NLCS, the Mets and Astros were tied 1-1 in the series. Game 3 saw the Mets down 5-4 in the ninth with the tying run on second. Then Lenny Dykstra stepped in and crushed a 2-run walk-off off Dave Smith. That gave the Mets the series lead and set them on the path to their second championship.
Chris Chambliss's walk-off against the Royals. In 1976, Chris Chambliss hit an amazing walk-off homer in the deciding ALCS game against the Royals. That play sent the Yankees to the World Series, and it's still talked about till this very day. Scott Hatberg's walk-off for 20 straight. By September 4th, 2002, the A's had won 19 straight games. However, on that day against the Royals, they blew an 11-0 lead and the game was tied in the ninth. Luckily, Scott Hatberg came in to pinch hit, and he drilled the second pitch into the seats for a history-making walk-off. Yep, that play made it 20 in a row, setting an AL record in the process. John Vukovich's walk-off against the Expos. In the 1981 NLDS, the Phillies were facing elimination against the Expos. Game 4 went to the 10th inning, tied 5-5, but John Vukovich pinch hit and hit a walk-off homer to keep the Phillies alive. And while it's true they didn't win the series, that swing kept the dream alive for one more day. Bill Mazeroski's walk-off to win the series. In Game 7 of the 1960 World Series, the Yankees and Pirates tied 9-9 in the bottom of the ninth. Then Bill Mazeroski led off and sent the first pitch over the wall. With that, the Pirates became champions, and Maz's homer is still the only Game 7 walk-off in World Series history. David Freese's walk-off to save the Cardinals. In Game 6 of the 2011 World Series, the Cardinals were down to their last strike twice against the Rangers. David Freese tied it in the ninth with a 2-run triple, then hit a walk-off in the 11th. St. Louis forced Game 7 and won the championship. And Freese became a hometown legend overnight. Steve Garvey's walk-off against the Cubs. In the 1984 NLCS, the Padres trailed the Cubs 2-1 in games. As for Game 4, it was tied 5-5 in the ninth when Steve Garvey hit a 2-run walk-off. That tied the series, and San Diego won the pennant the next day. Bobby Thomson's shot heard round the world. On October 3, 1951, Bobby Thomson cemented his legendary status when he hit a 3-run walk-off to beat the Dodgers and win the pennant. The radio call from Russ Hodges is still the most famous in baseball history. Ken Griffey Jr.'s walk-off against the Yankees. In 1995, the Mariners were making a crazy late-season push. On August 24th, they trailed the Yankees in the ninth, tied it, and then Ken Griffey Jr. hit a 2-run walk-off to leave everyone in awe. That win started a run that led Seattle to its first playoff berth.
Evan Longoria's walk-off to clinch the wild card. So, it's the final day of the 2011 season, and the Rays were down 7-0 to the Yankees after 7 innings. The season was basically over, but they came back to tie it. Then, in the 12th inning, Evan Longoria hit an unbelievable walk-off to clinch the wild card. The crowd lost its mind, and Boston's collapse was complete. Joe Carter's walk-off to win the series. In Game 6 of the 1993 World Series, the Blue Jays were down 6-5 in the ninth against the Phillies. Then, Joe Carter came up with 2 on and launched a 3-run homer to win the series. Fun fact, it's only one of 2 walk-offs to ever end a World Series. Now, if there are any other iconic walk-offs you can think of, tell us about them in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting baseball content.